Welcome to the GPLama YouTube channel and to a review that has been a long time coming. Now I have had a lot of people ask for this power meter to be put through my testing protocols in the last few months, so I do appreciate people wanting to see how the successor to the popular 505 holds up. And with a few recent firmware updates installed and tested over the last few weeks, the quick summary for those very short on time is that it performs very well. Check this out. While out at the Ballarat airport last week testing for peak power and residual torque issues, here's something that I hadn't seen before. And it was a pleasant surprise. Okay, peak power of this small sprint here, 1257 on both the Asioma Pro RS and the P515. I've never had two power meters line up so closely for peak power during a sprint. Had to be a fluke, right? Well, let's put that to the test on lap number 2 with a shorter, harder, more powerful effort. 1309 and 1308. That is, well, that's unheard of. I've never seen two power meters line up so well in two sprints, especially at those numbers. And as I just ride along, those numbers aren't separating, well, very much at all. Things are looking really good. Pulling up the technical overview of the P515 Spider power meter, weighs in at just 99 grams for the Spider alone. The interface is a proprietary crank interface for Magene cranks only. 4-bolt 110 BCD layout, power plus or minus 1% up to 2500 watts. Protocols, Amp Plus and Bluetooth. You'll get power, cadence, and estimate of your left-right balance given it's a Spider power meter and pedal smoothness. The battery is internal rechargeable up to 380 hours between charges. Charging is via a USB magnetic charger with a USB-A cable. Waterproof rating IPX7, active temperature compensation, and device management is via the Magene utility app. On both iOS and Android, we can do firmware updates, power scaling plus or minus 10%, and basic diagnostics. So what's different from the 505? Well, the 515 will fit on T47 bottom bracket bikes as it has more clearance on the inner of the Spider. Power is now plus or minus 1%, down from plus or minus 1.5 on the 505, and the battery life, 380 hours, which is phenomenal. That's up from 200 hours on the 505, and also up from 330 hours when the 515 was first launched. Also improved with a recent firmware update is pedal response latency for both cadence and power reporting. So things just pick up a little quicker with this meter. Onto the price, positioning and value, I guess, of this meter. The 515 is available as a Spider alone for $229 US, but I'll put that aside as you have to use Magene cranks. Now Magene sell the 515 as a power meter set with cranks included. Those being either the alloy crank version, the PES, or the carbon crank version, the TEO. The system weight of the TEO P515 I've been testing with 170mm crank length, 11-speed Dura Ace 5339 chainrings, that was 573 grams on the scales. The PES version, alloy cranks, again same length, 170mm, with 12-speed Dura Ace chainrings this time, 775 grams. Now that's not a one-to-one comparison because that was different chainrings used, but it's worth noting the TEO is a lot lighter than the PES version. The TEO with the carbon crank arms comes in at US $549 without chainrings, $599 with Magene chainrings. If you're going to add the Dura Ace chainrings, add about $200 to $250 US for that, bringing that up to a premium level offering. It's important to note the TEO carbon cranks only come with a 29mm dub compatible spindle. The PES P515 with alloy crank arms comes in at $299 US without chainrings, $374 with Magene chainrings, and if you're going to add, say, 105 level chainrings to that, plus about $100 US, bringing that to around $400 US. Note the PES cranks come with only the 24mm spindle size. So depending on which crankset you choose, it's both a budget offering at say $299 without rings, or a more premium offering at $549 without rings, but both use the same Spider and same power meter technology. The PES version is likely going to be your best option if you have compatible chainrings already and aren't too concerned about overall system weight. Oh, and with that 24mm spindle, it's a straight drop-in installation for Shimano road group sets. The TEO will require a dub compatible bottom bracket with its 29mm spindle. On to where to purchase, and that's entirely up to you. Buy this wherever you like. What I'm focused on is the power meter technology. Does it actually work? Now, if you've been following my power meter reviews for the last 6 months, you'll know there's a lot of competition in the budget Spider power meter space, but most of them aren't good competition. However, it's only a matter of time until they are. Now, Magene have been making power meters for a few good years, so they have a head start on most of the new players. As such, the P515 does not suffer from a number of common issues that I've been seeing lately while testing other meters. I did not observe any cadence failures during sprints. There was no instance of residual torque after hard sprints or peak power efforts, and there was no strange behaviours after firmware updates. Now, a few notes before getting into the data. The P515 units that I've tested were sent over by Magene just a few months ago, so I've been testing some freshly baked units. They also sent over a preview of firmware 119. This will be available for all units by the end of June. So keep an eye out for that. And as you saw on the weight scales, all of my testing was done with Shimano chainrings on both 11-speed and 12-speed Di2 equipped road bikes. All right, with that, let's get into the data. As always, back to my favorite website, the DCR Analyzer tool, where we can compare multiple sources of power and see how things stack up. I'll be quick, because this is pretty easy when the numbers line up like this. So out at the Ballarat Airport a little while back, we had the Magene P515 up against the GPLama Pro RS as a benchmark baseline. All looking pretty good. Look, overall average 145, 144, but we don't look at the overall average as much, especially when there's a lot of stop starts. But let's just grab these through here. That's looking pretty close. Nothing really jumping out. There's always going to be slight differences, even if you have one power meter and two head units. There's going to be slight differences with the 1 Hertz recording, but look, that's lining up. Nothing out of the ordinary there. And into the all-important sprints, which I have been creatine loading for and got my sprint above 1300 watts on a good day. And look, as you can see here, a bit of shadowing with the data for the recording intervals, but look, the average there, 234, 233. And after the sprint, things lining up very, very well. If you've seen my other videos, you'll see a sprint occur, even less than that power there, and like differences just appear until they're re-zeroed. That is not happening with this, rock solid. But that's just one sprint. Can we do it again? Same deal. A bit of a spike there as I jam on the pedals from the Asiomas, and then as things settle for a very short sprint here, and then after the sprint, the numbers are great. Again, a bit of shadowing here, nothing to worry about. 196, 192 for that. Again, that's some stop starts, but what I'm looking for there is the, like through here, 188, 187.96, within a watt or two. That is within spec. And again, a third sprint in the same ride. Again, nothing much to report. 148, 146. Again, with some stop starts, just skewing those numbers a little bit. Where's peak power here? We're looking at 1230 on the Asiomas for peak power, 1248, so not quite over 1300. I get there, just wait for the next data sets. Jumping down to the cadence, and cadence into sprints, wasn't dipping down, wasn't dropping out, matching pretty well. There's always, again, going to be a few little differences here and there, maybe when I change gears here, but cadence is looking fine. And jumping down to the left-right power in this data set, so we don't have to do it for the other ones, it was fine. Now, personally, I wouldn't be making any balance changes based on the left-right data from a Spider power meter. From a set of pedals, I would. Here, 68, 75, 71, 73. See, they're close, but they're not the same. But diving into another section through here, 81, 79, 84, 85. Again, there's a lot going on with that, but it's not too far out. Data set number 2, indoors this time, the Magene P515, the Asioma Pro RS, and the Tax Garmin Neo 3M, and a Lama Lab test that was, well, that was phenomenal. I've not had a clean data set like this for a very long time. Not much to report here. Averages 178, 177, 176. They just worked within spec. Grabbing this through here, nothing to report on. 87, 87, 85, we expect that. Into the sprint, no residual torque issues after that, 86, 84, 84, again within spec. Overs and unders, a bit more responsiveness from both power meters on the bike, the TEO 515 and the Favero pedals, 196, 196, 190. Not much more to say, there's the data. Another longer indoor session, 90 minutes this time, was a route badge, a little bit of erg work with the Jet Black Victory, and up the grade at the end. 163, 163, 164. The Victory probably could have done with a spin down. Let's grab this through here up the grade as I was just ticking away, and then accelerating a little bit harder at the end. Averages 218, 218, 220. As I said, the Victory probably could have used a spin down. The Victory is a lot more spikier than the rest, but that's matching the pedals very well. Data set number 4, and back outdoors again, this time with the alloy cranksets on the same type of Spider power meter, the 515. Again, I'm really trying hard to break this in a sprint. This time getting over the 1257. Where's the 1300? There we go, 1308, 1309. I knew there was one there somewhere. I showed it in the intro. But as you can see here, the data is lining up extremely well. And riding along into the wind and a hard 30-second effort above 600 watts. Let's grab that a little bit cleaner. Done. 283, 285, bit of a, like the only thing I can pick out is the spike there from the Asiomas as I just like jam on the pedals for that one data point. It's all good, it's all good. Into some stop starts, checking for sticky watts. Now it takes 2 to tango with that. Is it the head unit hanging onto the data? Is it the transmission from either power meter? 149, 149, that's really good. Again, there's a few slight differences. But other than that, it's not hanging on via ANT Plus to that power signal, so that's fine. Data set number 5 and a protocol test of ANT Plus versus Bluetooth with the single power meter. So 2 head units, 1 power meter. Just running along here, both protocols agree. Stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Sort of replicating maybe a criterium or just some random pedaling. And everything looks pretty good there. 139, 146, not too bad. I have seen 1 power meter with 2 different protocols be completely off by 50, 100, 150 watts over the same time period. So that's looking pretty good. Where things do get hung up though is on the cadence Bluetooth channel, and it is not uncommon for most power meters to do this. They just hang on to that last known cadence signal, repeat the value a few times before dropping off, and that does skew the averages. Now thankfully, your power zones, your training and everything is based on power, not cadence, so this is not too much of an issue, but worth pointing out that's the level I go to with these tests. Alrighty, in summary there, the data told the story. There's not much more to add than that. A Spider power meter that held up well during my testing, that was a welcome change. Again, it's also worth noting that data was from firmware 119, so if you have one of these meters, keep an eye out for this update coming soon. Now from here, it looks like Magene have their Spider power meter technology working very, very well. What I'd love to see is the 515 offered with different crank interface types, allowing people to choose their own cranks to use with this power meter Spider. Or at the very least, offering a carbon TEO version with a 24mm spindle for those weight weenies who want to stick with that bottom bracket bearing size. Another area I'd like to see them expand this product into is the gravel side, so a GRX-specific P515 with an asymmetric BCD and a chainring outboard a few millimeters to match that chain set specification. Although I'm sure there's probably a few third-party chainrings that will suit a GRX setup with the existing cranks. So with that, that's a wrap on my P515 power meter review. If you have one of these, let me know in the comments below. I'm keen to hear from people who've had one of these on their bike, probably a lot longer than I have. Now to support this channel and videos like this, be sure to hit that like button, hit subscribe, or leave a comment below. All those things help keep this content coming, and thanks for watching.